So I'm quickly going to recap to what we've just spoken about and learned from each other. So this is from the book that I'm going to read. Ms. Kat Murdoch has written, What Do Inquiry Teachers Do? So these are the bullet points which I'm going to read. Flexible, equitable learning environment, choice. Second, authentic context. Third, open-ended questions or problems. Fourth, provoke, model, and celebrate curiosity, exactly what Nisha explained explicitly. Fifth, allow time for students to figure it out for themselves. Flip the lesson. Anybody who can put some light on this?
Flip lessons is sometimes when you, so suppose if you want the children to see a movie and followed by a discussion, you could send the link at home. The children can see the movie and come back and then followed by a discussion. So that's a flipped classroom.
Okay, thank you. I think we all do that. It's just not very familiar with the language. Okay, 6.
Yeah, it could also be a YouTube video link or anything. It, you know, any audio-visual link.
6th, using probing questions and thinking prompts. 7th, raise questions. So anybody who wants to discuss on these points, stop me there. 7th, raise questions, wonderings. Questions are a sign of good thinking. 8th, make some decisions. 9th, a layered or split screen approach by Guy Claxton. So anybody who can explain split screen? We always talk about it, but have you ever used it? Has anybody used it? Split screen, you want me to read it as example from daily practice. It says as students work on math problem in a small group, you might ask them to notice the way they are strengthening their collaboration skills as they give feedback to each other.
Sorry, Pallavi, what was your question?
About a layered or split screen.
So split screen is when two tasks have been given simultaneously. You are asking them to, it's like, how would I explain it to you? So you give a task and you tell them that, you know, you come back and you do this. So it's like, it's basically two tasks giving at the same time. And what your take would be on that? Let me. Which page is it?
It's page number 22, ninth point. Because when I watched this webinar of Kat Murdoch and Guy Claxton, they kept talking about split screen. I did try to read and understand, but I got confused. Yes, Panna, till the time Nisha is coming back, anything that you can add on?
I guess it they are talking about making into small groups, giving the task, as Nisha said, definitely giving tasks, but tasks to the people, to the groups, smaller groups, and then coming back with their perspective or the reflection, you can say, like, then further going on with their ideas. Okay, so this is what you have come upon with your ideas or understanding, and now we are going ahead. So breaking into groups, I feel this is the split thing. I guess this is.
So it is looking at two things simultaneously. So suppose if you are asking the children to collaborate, and then you tell them that, okay, while collaborating, what were the certain rules that you followed? So you have given them making sure that though they are keeping the task in mind, but also follow that how are they doing it. So it's like doing two things simultaneously. That's a split classroom.
Is it to show your strategy?
Yes, technically to show how you're visibly thinking it. How are you doing the process? What process did you involve yourself? So when you are looking at probably collaborating or you're looking at interviewing someone, so suddenly you do go with a pre-decided question, but you do add in someone. So what made you do that? So just making sure that the children are looking at the process also. And it's a strategy which is being used quite a bit now
Mm. Yes. Thank you so much. 10th, transferable routines and strategies. For example, in a music lesson, students might practice using the connect, extend, challenge routine to analyze a piece of music. This can also be used in a range of other subject areas. Make sure you are explicit about the transfer, how it works the same and differently across subject areas. Is it clear? 11th, make connections between ideas. 12th, open unexpected pathways. 13th, access students' prior learning. Constructing understanding. Allow some open-ended exploration time. Limit whole class instruction. How have you done that, limiting whole class instruction? Because when we talk of differentiation in the class, and when we try and practice and support different kind of groups, now how are we, when we are giving one main when we are trying to help them with a main instruction, after doing that we can break it down, but is there any other way that we can go about it?
So today only I read something very interesting called the anchor charts. So anchor charts have certain instructions that are already done previously in a classroom. So suppose it could be about collaboration or anything, and you have it displayed in your classroom. So you just point to the children that, you know, when you are doing this task, make sure you are following this. So just keep using a lot of anchor charts in classroom.
But at the same point, we have to be, I think, mindful enough that it doesn't overpower. When we talk of displays, then it becomes a decorative piece on the wall and not the learning journey. I've seen that happening in some of the classrooms.
No, but then your anchor chart. So suppose if your strategy is cups, using of capital letters and punctuation and all that. So you are ensuring that when the children are writing, you just point to the anchor charts and say that, you know, just remember to follow, when you're proofreading, just follow the strategy. You're just making sure that the children, it's like creating a success criteria. You're
Yes.
just guiding them to look at it consciously. That's it. You're not in any way hindering a child's progress. You're just still letting them be agentic. You're still giving them agency, but you're supporting, and this is where your differentiation is coming in.
Because it's visual and it has names on it, and yes, I think that's a beautiful way of doing it, but I fear of it overpowering the class. I've seen that happening a lot.
So I think, sorry to interrupt. I think this can be done as a part of integration while you are integrating something like a language or writing thing or a math with your UI. Then I think this works.
Nisha?
Is that true, Nisha?
No, I think so. Even with when you're having a discussion and you want certain guidelines and essential agreements to be followed, you always point it out to the children. See, the thing is, having things around your classroom just make you are just, sometimes the children forget what else is there in the classroom. By just pointing at it, you tell the children, you're not explaining it again to them. It is still agency. I mean, I'm still left, I still have the choice to use it or not use it. But you're just pointing it to the children just to be conscious about it. It could be done in written work, discussion. I mean, just ensuring that you keep telling the children where to, I mean, if you look at the second chapter where she talks about the environment, I mean, how can we make the environment conducive to learning is by having those things around. If I have a burning question, I need to know where the books are to be able to go and look at the information. Like for us as teachers, immediately we don't know anything, we look at Google and we try looking out for answers. So it's the same thing. It's like materials kept around the classroom where the children can use it for making sure that they are in the right path.
Basically, she's talking about the classroom displays
Hmm.
and resources kept around.
Yeah, and it's called anchor charts. If you have, so like in my classroom, we do have the concepts around, we do have the essential agreements in the classroom. We do have the themes around because we consciously keep talking and keep bringing it. We do have the skills around because we do co-construct the success criteria. And then we keep pointing it out to the children because we want them to consciously look at it. The learner profile is there in the classroom. So these are some anchor charts that we always have around in the classroom where we keep showing it to the children. Just remember, you need to be open-minded, caring when you're working in a group, collaborate. Don't be one leader, one talker, and the others just not doing anything. So these are the kind of things that can be used. And again, it needs to be modeled so that it does not become overwhelming. I mean, every day if I come and say in the classroom, children, don't forget, then they stop listening. But if
Absolutely.
at the beginning, if you tell them that it becomes like in the pre-primary, the way we do the routines, it's the same way in the older classes.
Absolutely. I very well agree to you, agree with your understanding, Nisha, here, because when I was doing IB with grade 2, every time we did a lesson, a chapter, a story, and slowly, children started coming out and were talking about, this is the perspective of the character. This is how the key concept of perspective is coming out. And this is the TD theme, it was amazing to see the connections that they would make. Exactly. I think modeling and these charts, the display really helps. It's you're walking the learning journey and creating it. Thank you. So next is 16th point, talking and thinking. 17th, reflective thinking into the daily routine. 18th, learning strategies. Consider the tasks students are doing as learning strategies rather than activities. Make sure students know why they are doing what they are doing. 19th, provide opportunities for personal learning pathways. Now, how have you done that in your classes? Anybody would like to share their best practice on this? Provide opportunities for personal learning pathways. The example given here in the book is create a routine in the week, such as I time, see chapter 7, that allows students to investigate current passions or work on skill they wish to develop. I used to do this in my circle time. So anybody who's done this?
I have done it in my grade when I was in kindergarten. That was in 2015, 2015. Yeah, we started with Genius Hour for the children, and it was a tough, because it had just been newly introduced. The I Time and Genius Hour. We started with kindergarten, and by the time with a lot of questions from the management, we started it, and it was such a good experience because children delved into their line of interest. Some children were interested in the globe. They wanted to know a lot about the countries, the continents. Some wanted was passionate about knowing about animals and how they used to get their books, and they used to inquire. And the best part was we could see the progression week after week, because there were, first initially there were only a few children who were interested. Then they roped in a lot of others. Then entire class got interested in some or the other activity that was happening during that time. And the best example that I could give was, I had these 5 set of girls, and they created their own girl band in kindergarten, and we had an inquiry fest, and they performed during that time. And they, they learned the song, and they choreographed the entire, how they would stand and present their own headgears. They designed their own costume, that we would be wearing black shimmery t-shirts. And it was a beautiful experience, because then we had the music teacher who integrated and gave the music. And it was it was amazing to see how parents really enjoyed that girl band, and at the age of 5 they did that. So that was the culmination of our genius hour during, for the entire year. And that was something that we have taken forward year after year, and we see a lot of progress, whenever the children want to do something, and they have been given the freedom and the time to pursue it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. A similar example I would like to share. As teachers, we plan the summative and the backward plannings start following. The children decided to be in different groups when we were doing I was working with them on life cycles. Some decided in their free time, they decided that they want to do a drama. The other one decided to do some show and tell. And the whole summative, they created a whole summative by the choices they wanted to show their understanding with. So the planning is out of the planning went out of the window, and that's how they exhibited their learning. So I think once given them some time, they definitely come with better plans. Yes, Janvi, you raised your hand.
I was thinking even gallery walks work very well, if you want to setting up a gallery walks, taking them around, and letting them ask a lot of questions really works very well, especially with the younger lot. They learn a lot by seeing it. So in my previous school, what they had done for this, like the winter, they wanted to teach them winter. That time I was with pre-primary. So what they had done, they had set up everything that is related to winter on different, like on one table there were, igloos made, then clothes made, then there was no sun, it was very this thing snow. So they came up with this, oh, I think there is winter, one room they had fully covered it with like white cotton and everything. Then they went in the other room and they discussed, oh, we are talking about winter season, there's winter clothes, there's this thing. So gallery walks really also work very well. It's quite well.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? I continue. Okay. 20th are inquiry learners. The example from the daily routine, the best inquiry teachers are continually inquiring into their own practice. They show students how they are learners too, and bring an inquiry mindset to their own teaching. One of the most powerful ways we can nurture an inquiry disposition in our students is to show them our fascination in the world, our hunger to learn, our delights in discovery, our willingness to find out more, and our preparedness to change our thinking. An inquiry mindset can be contagious when we make it visible and audible to others. I completely agree to this. I have done this because I love to read. So I deliberately used to carry books to my class to show, and I miss, you're reading so many books, huh? Thick fat books. So there was some idea about the thick fat books. All that. Sorry, Rosman. Okay, and after 1 or 2 days, I saw a change in the class. They would visit the library, get the books, pretend to be the most smartest one, open up the book and start to read. But at least the culture started to build. All right. I think we're done with chapter 1. Chapter 2 definitely talks about creating the space, how we can design learning environment for inquiry. Nisha has already given us something to ponder upon, and we've already started the discussion on this. Very, very interesting, because it shows how open the teacher is, what is the mindset, and what are you trying to, what are your learning intentions from the spaces that you're setting up, how much agency you are trying to promote in. So anybody who's done it differently, anybody, I'm sure everybody does it differently. Anybody who has a best practice or an aha moment to share before we start with this? Or you have observed your peers' class, your children, you've seen a shift in your children's demeanor or their learning when you consciously set up a space. Did any provocative space, any exploratory space, or any design space that you've consciously done that? Anything that you would like to share? Cheryl? Hi, Cheryl, are you there? Nobody would like to share anything on space. Wow, how will you?
I wanted to share, Pallavi.
Thank you.
The space basically, it gives a huge impetus to the students' learning, which of course through my years when I was teaching grade 1, I got one batch which was completely kinesthetic learners. So, I had 20 students in my class, and out of them, 17 were kinesthetic learners. They would not sit at all, and they would always be very bouncy. It was very difficult to make them sit, and I got to know that, of course, making them scribe, write, um, those activities did not work for me. So I set up a corner which had a lot of these, loose part materials like paper cups, and I had these bottle caps and, bottles, and you won't imagine the moment they would enter the class, they would run to that particular corner and they would create such wonderful creations that finally we started doing a lot of math, a lot of language, wherein they started making those manipulative. And when we were doing subtraction, so they made a pinball game, okay, on their own. So they made those 10 paper cups, a tower of 10 paper cups, and they threw a ball and they said, ki, ma'am, they were 10 and 5 fell off, so how many were left? So they created those kind of games. So everybody was given an opportunity to create games, and this made their own pair, and they created these subtraction games. And their learning was so good that, the moment they would come, they would gather their material and sit in the corridor and start doing the lesson however they wanted to do. And it really changed my perspective as a teacher, that initially I was so uh, not very happy that I don't know what to do with these children, because they don't sit and they're bouncy, they're running around in the class. But finally, when the session was ending, I was so emotional when they were moved to grade 2, that I said I had the best ever time with these children, because I got to learn so much, that how can I
Absolutely.
innovate a class. So I think
Great.
learning skills and learning experience, experiential learning does make a lot of difference to your classroom.
Well
Yeah,
done,
this is
Kiki,
a
on
great
that.
experience. Yeah. A very
Sorry,
good example
Amita
of,
has raised hand. Amita has raised hand for a very long time. After Amita, Panna.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
and what we had done in our class was there was this learning environment. We removed all the tables and all the benches where the children used to sit, and it was an empty space for them. So it was their space. They used to lie down. They used to lighting down. They were on the space. Some of them we kept very few, maybe 2 or 3 benches and tables for the children for the learners who had to sit there, and other was an empty space. So you cannot imagine the way they enjoyed their learning. And then later on, after 2 or 3 days, we called for their pillows and for blankets. So what used to happen when we used to have this, when they used to come back from PE time, we used to give them 10 minutes of nap time. So it used to work so well with them. They used to run, get their pillows, get their blankets, get their bed sheets, and literally I would say some of the children used to snore. They used to just go off to sleep. So after 15 minutes, when we used to wake them up, they were fresh for the class. They were fresh for the next session. And when we used to play those videos, when they have to watch the videos or interactive, watch YouTube videos or videos regarding to our learning, they used to come, ma'am, can we have a pillow, lie down and watch it? So it was so very comfortable for them. And that was really a very good thing that we did. And we also, that was our evaluation time, and we also got a recommendation from the evaluators for that, because they were so happy seeing this, because they thought that learning space is theirs, they can use it anywhere. We were not there, because sitting on the table or sitting on the chair becomes a boredom for them. So this was open space for them. So we also got a recommendation for that from the evaluators doing our evaluation.
Thank you, Amita. That's wonderful. It must be thrilling to see children lying on the floor and watching the video.
Absolutely.
Anna?
And it was real nice when they used to just fall off to sleep. You know, when they used to come from their PE class, they used to just run, ma'am, 10 minutes nap time, ma'am, 10 minutes nap time. So at that time, we were also smart enough. Okay, you get 10 minutes, but after this, you have to finish this, what we have planned. Yes, ma'am, we'll do that. Just give us 10 minutes nap time. And then that used to, it worked wonders for us.
Lovely. Panna?
Yeah, same thing I wanted to share. Even we had during this when people came for affiliation, watch the second affiliation something. At that time, even we were having similar things in our classroom, like a reading corner, where we used to have that that space was kept with one mat, and then pillows and all, and then even with the books we had also kept some books also, and dictionaries also, so that if like children want to read something, find out something from the meaning of that word, and then write it down with some papers. We used to have that dictionary sheets, geos of dictionary sheets, like what is their understanding. And then things went so well, like those 10-15 minutes in the morning, and especially after PE class or after their lunch time, were really wonderful for them. And then the whole day, the whole class went so smoothly. They were really great. So this is really, space is really, it works.
Lovely. I think we've covered in this discussion most of the chapter 2. Hardly 1 or 2 things are left. Brush it up, read it through, and if there is any problem, we'll cover it up the next Saturday when we meet 4 to 5, considering. So I got requests as if, everybody will join, and I hardly see people join. Most of us are from India. So if you want, we can go back to 2 to 3, whatever is more comfortable.
No, this 4 to 5 is great, Pam. This is great, I think.
All right.
Let everyone.
I did write to Miss Kath Murdoch, and 20 minutes we have got from her, though she still has to tell me the time slot when she's available. It's the 24th of this month, unless she changes. I'll keep you all posted on the group, whatever communication happens with her. And I hope to learn more. And Ruchi, Priya, everybody, please participate more. It's great to learn from each other's experience.
I'm eagerly waiting for Kath to be with us. Really.
Yeah. So we'll start with chapter 3 next Saturday. Also, because coronavirus is spreading again, and I've been getting a lot of requests from teachers who have lost their job. So if anybody who's volunteering to help, I'll be very happy if you can write to me personally or drop me a personal message that if you have any vacancy in your school, there are a lot of people who are struggling to meet their ends. If we can collaborate and help the teacher community as much as we can, please help me with that. That's a personal request. So thank you very much. And let's hope to meet again with more people, with more understanding across the globe, 4 to 5 Saturday, next Saturday. I'll post this video on the social media. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pallavi. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.